Okay, so there are people asking me to make this video about this New Zealand shooting thing, and I don't exactly know what they'll expect. I don't have any unique insights on this, so I guess I'll just say my thoughts, which is that the neo-Nazis really have a long way to go if they ever want to match the kill count of the establishment in terms of killing Muslims. The death counts for Iraq and Afghanistan are astronomical. Somewhere around 600,000 for Iraq so far. And people are getting killed there every day as a direct result of U.S. action, destabilizing Iraq and also destabilizing Syria, creating that astroturf government in Afghanistan, which is just a cup of trembling, and it's just causing an endless war there. And I'm sure you've seen the comments on this by the shit libs. The comments on this immediately are about retribution against the alt-right. This is the first place that people reporting on this are going. The war in Iraq is responsible for about 109 deaths per day averaged across the occupation. These are wars that we opposed. I don't know what you'd call us. Disaffected whites. Yeah, the disaffected whites, the ones who supported Trump and are now starting to move towards Yang, who hated the Bushes, oppose the wars, want the borders closed, want the tariffs up. These people, disaffected whites, that's a good term. Some of us lose their minds and start imagining that they're Nazis or something, and they do things like this. Usually it doesn't go quite this far. Usually it's just them LARPing around in stupid symbols that make everyone hate them. And it's terrible. And of course I disavow it. Do you see, though, that this is a drop in the ocean of what those we oppose have done to Muslims, though? Those Dr. Strangelove types at the Foreign Policy Institutes. The effect of Hugh Hewitt, Bill Kristol, Michael Medved, Ben Shapiro, and Dennis Prager's advocacy for the wars back in 2001 to 2003 are each almost certainly more responsible for more than 40 deaths each among them. How many more days of war did their advocacy cause? How much sooner was the U.S. pushed into those wars by their advocacy? Every day around 109 people, so one day that's 109 deaths on their hands. And of course, none of them have any interest in stopping the wars now. None of them are saying, put the brakes on it now, we were wrong, let's start doing the anti-war stuff. None of them care. Ironically, the only people who seem to care, who seem to really be wanting to stop these wars, are the disaffected whites. Richard Spencer, as big a piece of shit as he generally is, has been consistently anti-war. Heck, Colin Powell, that guy who had those PowerPoint presentations of mobile weapons labs hidden in trucks that they kept moving around. Why? Right? That's why the UN weapons inspectors couldn't find them, because they had these entire laboratories that were and entire production facilities that were just loaded onto trucks and moved around, just in the nick of time to avoid the UN weapons inspectors, right? Colin Powell was pushing that crap, and that lie that led to that war. Of course, I'll disavow the New Zealand shooter of 40. Let's disavow Colin Powell 1,000 times more for the war criminal he is. He knew he was lying. He knew what he was doing. And the blood on his hand and the fake anti-war movement. Hey guys, Muslims are still being killed. As soon as George Bush was gone, you guys couldn't use that war to attack Bush anymore. So you stopped caring. But you never really cared about the Iraqis or Afghanis. You never really cared about Muslims. They were just props for you to use for your hate against George Bush. And given how you don't give the slightest whiff of concern over the 100 or so deaths a day in Iraq and however many more in Afghanistan are still going on, now we are to believe that your outrage over 40 dead in New Zealand is genuine? That this is real? You don't care about the 1,000 times greater deaths that occurred in the past month. No, you care about this one-off 40 deaths in New Zealand. No, your concern about this is fake, and those dead in New Zealand are just your props for you to continue your war against disaffected whites. Of the three groups in question on these matters, the political establishment that supports open borders and endless wars, the Muslims, and the disaffected whites with no political power. The disaffected whites are by far the least harmful and the least dangerous of these three groups. Sure, we have some things to apologize for, things that are infinitesimal compared to the blood on the hands of the neoliberal establishment, and certainly far less than the blood on the hands of the Muslims, even. Though of the three, the neoliberal establishment is definitely the worst by a very long mile. 40 dead in New Zealand, and that's the high watermark. This may be the biggest mass killing done by a disaffected white. That's less than half of one day of the establishment's war in Iraq. We're not violent, and the fact that the killing of 40 Muslims in one country is the biggest atrocity they could find, they could trot out, that this pitiful peak actually represents the high watermark for kills by disaffected whites, whose population numbers perhaps 300 million globally, depending on how you define disaffected white. That is a testament to how profoundly peaceful and tolerant we really are. We have less to apologize for than almost anyone. And this despite being the most demonized, the most marginalized, the one group that you can legally discriminate against, the one group who it is socially acceptable to mock for being poor, whose interests have no representation in government, who are so desperate for anyone to give us any consideration that we rolled the dice with a real estate con man named Donald Trump. And guess what? We're about to roll the dice again for this Andrew Yang guy. You know why? Universal basic income, and in one of his tweets, he so much as mentioned the problems that white people were having. He so much as mentioned, he did a tweet for blacks, he did a tweet for Hispanics, he did a tweet for Asians, and he also had one for whites. He actually acknowledged the existence of white people as a group of people with issues, with problems, and with needs and concerns. When I say disaffected whites, I mean it. It's time to stop demanding apologies from us, and for you to do some soul searching. You know, when a Muslim blows up a bus or a hotel or something, you know how you guys to say how you abhor the act, but you can understand the socioeconomic context that led him to do that. And let's sort of understand as to why this happened, what external forces led this person to engage in this act. And you constantly do that with Muslims. Well, consider the preceding.